Hi everyone, my name is Constantine Victoria, and today I just wanted to show you guys just a little fun I have with mathematics. I like to kind of apply what I've learned by modeling things in real life. It helps me think with mathematical logic, helps me apply the notions that I've read and understand them a lot better by applying it to actually to real world applications. And so I use a bit of set theory and metric spaces just to provide a framework of measuring creativity and to also keep track of how ideas propagate in a system of participants. Um, and so the first axiom of this framework is there exists a set of ideas I, which are all the ideas that exist. So every idea that exists in our universe and wherever we are will exist in this set. This is an absolute set. It contains everything. And anything that isn't in this set are things that aren't ideas or just doesn't exist. Um, so we have this set just for convenience sake. It's our way to kind of uh, indicate that an idea does exist, and the thing that we're creating is an idea. And so in this system or in framework, we also have participants or agents or things that are dynamic in the sense that they change over time. And so just like I'm not the person who I was when I was 5 years old, PA at T1 is not going to be a person at the same thing as PA at T12. And also, every participant in the system is represented as a subset of ideas. So PA of T is a subset of the set of all ideas. Actually, it is an element of the power set of ideas, whichever way you look at it. So the second axiom is that so the first axiom just develops ideas and develops agents. So these are like the necessary objects in our system. And axiom 2 allows us to create new ideas. And this is important in the sense that creativity requires a creation of idea, right? We use our imagination to be creative, and when we're using our imagination, we're usually thinking, and when we're thinking, we're creating new ideas. And so the formation of a new idea is mapping a set of ideas to a new ideas. This is actually grammatically wrong. I'm sorry about that. I wrote this in a whim. That is also an element of I. So that means that whenever a person at a certain time makes a new idea, that idea is an idea that exists. That's why it's an element of an I. And so this is what this function basically explicates. There exists some function that takes a subset of ideas and maps it to a new idea that is also part of the set of ideas. So in a sense, it's mapping a set of ideas from I to an idea in I, right? That's why it's we map power set of I to I itself. And so when a participant creates a new idea, it's not necessarily stored. And this is similar to like calculation, right? When we calculate something, when a calculator calculates something and produces an output, that output isn't necessarily stored by the calculator. And so there exist participants in which they make new from inputs. they make an output which is not stored at all. And so these are just pretty much like functions, right? They input, they output, and nothing is stored. But there are participants in this system that do store their new ideas. And so these are like what we usually call like sentient objects, like, or sentient beings that have memory, that can retain things. And so we need to encapsulate that in the system. So the one way we do that is that we in this axiom we explicate memory by saying that if an idea was created at t time, and at that same time that idea also already existed in the set of ideas that person knew of, then that idea is essentially stored. Whereas if you were to model a calculator at t time, the calculator will create a new idea or new information, but doesn't necessarily store it in its set of ideas because it doesn't necessarily have a set of ideas. So the retaining of memory is encapsulated here, in the sense that after a certain amount of time, that idea still stays in a set of ideas that the participant has, or a set of ideas of a participant. But after a certain amount of time, it may disappear and it may no longer be a member of the set of ideas. And this is important because people die. Or there are participants in which they can no longer either access their set of ideas, or they can't transfer a set of ideas. And so we need to encapsulate that as well. So, for example, if I were to die, all right, if at PA 24, so I maybe 72, PA 72, after 72 years, after 72 years with respect to my birth, I die, my set of ideas no longer exist, because I can't access it, I can't do the f function, nor can I transfer it. But it is still possible to get the set of ideas that I have if I have transferred it to another participant. And remember, a participant doesn't have to be a person, it could just be a thing. And if PB is my essay on ethics, or this video that I'm doing right now, then PB can transfer information to another agent like me, or sentient agent. But it can't necessarily think of a new information, right? It can't. It doesn't have that ability to think like me. And so this is more of like a calculator model, where it can transfer information, but it cannot create new information. So we want to encapsulate that in the system. Axiom 3 is the function. It describes the function t, which is just the function that explicates the transfer of information into the system. And so we basically take a set. Oh shit. So we get two participants. And then we map it to one participant. So basically we're getting the set of ideas of participant B, and this should be this should be A. Let me change that real quick. So we're getting the set of ideas from participant B, A subset. Ideas. A subset of ideas for participant B, and then adding it to the set of ideas of participant A, and then redefining participant A to be that new set. And this is simply just adding new information to participant A. but the new information originated from participant B. So with these three axioms, we can model how ideas propagate in a system. And so how this would look like in a graphical model, how it will play out is at T1, which is at a certain time, nothing is happening. These participants aren't actually interacting with each other. But at T2, there does exist an interaction because there exists a function that maps PB to PA. And in this interaction, PB is transferring some information to PA. And at T3, PA then takes the information that was given to PB. It doesn't have to be all of them, maybe some of the information from PB, and deduces a new information that did not exist prior to T3. And then with this new information, it then maps it to PC. It transfers it to this new person PC. So yeah, in a sense, we've taken information from one person, another person thinks about the new information, creates a new idea, and then PC gets the result of that kind of sum calculation, overall calculation. And so this paragraph just kind of explicates the graph, which I've already done for you guys. And then Axiom 4 is a requirement. So in order for us to measure creativity, there must be an idea or a creation of idea that we can measure. Right? Because if at time t, participant A is not thinking of anything at all, then we can't really deduce any kind of creativity. If we were just to only measure at that current moment, and I'm not saying that we're not taking, what I mean by that is we're not taking account of their past creation of new ideas or the future creation of idea. We're taking account of the moment of the present in which they're not even thinking of anything. So there is no information we can deduce a creativity index from. And so this is a necessary condition that must be met in order for us to measure a creative index. And here I just explicate that the creativity, the value, or the index is going to be from 0 to 1. And so, now that we have a system in which we kind of are able to model how ideas propagate and how ideas are made, then we can move on to measuring how creative ideas are. And so one of my proposals is the Novelty Index. And in short, it's just you take someone's idea and then compare it to, and then find out how many people in a system that you're considering have that same idea. And, and then you get the ratio. And, 1 minus that ratio. So if you're the only person out of 20 people, 1 over 20, then your novelty index is going to be higher than if your creation of a new idea, if 4 people out of 20 have out of 20 people in your system have the same idea as you, and so that's 1 out of 5. So this is your novelty index, right? It's going to be more, your novelty index, the novelty of your idea is going to be higher if there was 1 person out of 20. Or sorry, lower if you're the only person out of the system that has that idea. So that's what that novelty index measure, how unique your idea is. Because the reasoning is, or the logic that follows is that if you have an idea that most people have thought of already, Like, what if we measure red and yellow together to make orange? Like I created my new idea of orange. Is it really unique? Is it new? Is it creative? I argue may not be, because a lot of people can deduce the same thing. So in the sense, it's not creative because it's not unique. Um, but of course, that's not the only thing that measures creativity. Creativity, I believe, is multifaceted. There's like a lot of factors that get into it. But I think this is one of the prominent factors that kind of measure one's creativity, is how unique their idea is. And then we have the Connectedness Index, which actually should be more of a disconnected index. So this just measures how disconnected the ideas that you use to deduce this new idea, or to create this new idea. And in short, we're just measuring how similar these ideas are, the ideas that you use. Um, and if they're not very similar, then your disconnected index is a lot higher. And what we're trying to encapsulate is the logic behind, or what I'm trying to encapsulate is the logic behind, you know, the connectedness between 1 plus 1 equals 2 and 2 plus 2 equals 4. These are very close to each other in terms of subject matter, and and to deduce those two things are kind of easy, right? Because they're very close to each other in terms of uh, subject matter, in terms of relatedness. But if you try to do something as like finding a notion in bioengineering and then connect it to a notion in something as really abstract as like type theory, then there has to be like some sort of that's incredibly hard to do. There has to be some sort of creativity in that process in order to kind of connect two very different things together. And so the higher the connected index, the more ingenious the idea is. And so, I mean, if just to, I guess, roughly go over the mathematics, we create a metric space in which the space is, the set is I, and the distance function is a normal Euclidean distance function in two dimension, and then we get the we get the we get the sum of every the distance of every node with respect to every other node. Oh gosh, I'm butchering that. And then we get the average. This is pretty much the average distance. And this is interestingly ki, the number of edges in ki in graph theory. So yeah, this is just pretty much more of the mathematics, but I pretty much explicate what it stands for. Just invoice. So the first conjecture of this metric is that the more unrelated things are, the more more unrelated ideas you use to deduce a new idea, the more ingenious that idea is. However, it is possible we have a participant in the system that creates something that's completely random. So it takes a random set of ideas and is in a set of all ideas, and then map it to a random idea in the set. So it's very random, and there's nothing that really, it kind of doesn't make sense. I mean, it may be ingenious in the fact that it's taking very, very different ideas and relating it to another idea. And in a sense, it may also be new, that not a lot of people have this idea because the connection is something that most people can't really make. But does it make sense? A person, it's kind of like a child that, deduces that T-Rex and like, if it were to grow some wings, it can fly to the moon. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It is creative, but what would make it more creative if it made some kind of logical sense? Because we can have instances where ideas are just completely illogical. The deduction is completely illogical, but it's new, and the ideas to deduce it are very disconnected. And so we need to kind of like confine this, this kind of and what in order that we usually confine these kind of ideas is that we reference it to some kind of logical system. So, like for example, in order for me to deduce this creative index, I have to use. I'm going by the logical system of mathematics. Hopefully, I'm doing it correctly. But I am using a logical system, and that way, so that when someone, if someone were to deduce the creativity of my work, they can use the same logical system that I use to deduce my creativity, and then, they would be able to kind of uh, uh, comprehend this work and, use the same logical system to gauge if it makes any logical sense. But logical systems, there's infinite different types, many different types of logical systems. You have logical systems in mathematics. So, a mathematical point of view, this might make a lot of sense, but in an artistic, logical system, this may not make sense at all. And in fact, there's many different kinds of logical systems be, be in this, just this set of people in this world. Like, I have a different logical system. It's fundamentally different from the next person, or my parents, or my sister. We all have different logical system, and as a result, we all deduce things very differently. So we need to take also account of the logical system in which we deduce the creativity of something, and so that's what the logical index does. Um, and and so this is one that I'm still working on, the logical index. This actually ties into another piece of work that I was doing, which is um, an ethical framework in which there's different kinds of ethical spheres in which we gauge ethical dilemmas. And so, given a certain dilemma, someone might think a good someone might think of a good decision, another person might think of a bad decision. That's because they're referencing to different kinds of ethics or ethical spheres. And this is very much the same thing like that. It's almost kind of, I don't want to say it, maybe it's a little it's homeomorphic in the sense that it's the same thing at different forms. Um, so I just need to find a way to make this an index, and that is I'm currently working on. I think I'm going to use the same kind of index that I use in the ethical system, because it's something that could easily apply to your mathematically, but we'll have to see. But anyways, thank you for coming to my 22-minute and 54-second talk. I'm sorry it was a very long talk. It's probably really boring. None of it probably makes sense. But the thing that I like about it is I just get to explain something that I've been thinking about, and it makes me, allows me to really think about it as well. And it's just, I like to share ideas with people and bounce back ideas and get my work checked. So it's always nice to kind of just put it out there. Take everything what I said with a grain of salt, though. All of this is just theoretical. Hopefully, it's not crackpot mathematics. If it is, I'm still learning, and that's fine. Naivety is a part of learning mathematics. So, yeah, thank you for watching.